Hello! Today I'm going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite techniques of poetry, and that is persona poetry. Poetry is unusual, and that's because it's a little bit of fiction and it's a little bit of nonfiction. You can write poetry about your life, and you can also make something up. However, sometimes even knowing that, we can still feel limited as poets. So for instance, you might feel like nothing interesting has happened to me. What do I have to write about? Or you're so interested in what you're writing about that other people don't exactly understand what you're trying to get after. You're really just referring to things inside yourself that maybe others don't know about. This is where persona poetry can help. Persona poetry is when you write from someone else's voice. It could be a different person, it could be an animal, it could be a plant, it could even be this table, for instance. And the power of persona is that it lets your imagination move beyond yourself into a new way of seeing the world. Many poets use this technique. Some common themes that people use when using persona is writing in the voice of a character from mythology, literature, folk tales, fairy tales. You could also write from the perspective of a celebrity or historical figure. You can even invent a person like David Bowie and Ziggy Stardust. However, it is important to be thoughtful about the voice that you try on in your persona poem. In general, it's better to not pick a voice of someone from an underrepresented group or an oppressed group if you're not a member of that group. Rather, you should read work from marginalized writers and get their perspective from them themselves. So, that leads to my invitation to you as a writer. Today I want you to choose a character from a favorite fairy tale to write from a persona poem from. And I'm going to give you an example from the poet Louise Gluck. She writes in the voice of Gretel from Hansel and Gretel in her poem, Gretel and Darkness. So as you listen, think about how we learn something new about Gretel and Hansel's experience through this poem. Gretel and Darkness. This is the world we wanted. All who would have seen us dead are dead. I hear the witch's cry break in the moonlight through a sheet of sugar. God rewards. Her tongue shrivels into gas. Now, far from women's arms and memory of women, in our father's hut we sleep, are never hungry. Why do I not forget? My father bars the door, bars harm from this house, and it is years. No one remembers. Even you, my brother, summer afternoons you look at me as though you meant to leave, as though it never happened. But I killed for you. I see armed firs, the spires of that gleaming kiln. Nights I turn to you to hold me, but you are not there. Am I alone? Spies hiss in the stillness, Hansel, and we are there still, and it is real, that black forest and the fire in earnest. So as you hear in that poem, Gretel has a really difficult time getting over being captured by the witch in the woods. She remembers that trauma and fears that Hansel doesn't share it with her. So this fairy tale, with which we feel so familiar, becomes strange and new and incredibly sad in the hands of this poet. So, you can make your persona sad, you can make it happy, irreverent, whatever you want. And I'm going to give you a few ideas to get you going, but really, you can go with a character of your own choosing. So, some characters you might think about are Cinderella. You could write a poem from her perspective, from a stepsister's perspective, even from the glass slipper's perspective. What would the glass slipper have to say about the story of Cinderella? You could try out Snow White. What does the poem look like from, or what does the folktale look like from the perspective of a dwarf? What does Happy or Sleepy think about this situation? You could also choose a character from a favorite children's book. Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, Alice in Wonderland are all wonderful options. Once you choose a character, it can sometimes help to put them in a contemporary setting. So what would Peter Pan think about the pandemic? How would Alice in Wonderland deal with social distancing? Write that poem and find out. Thank you so much for learning about persona with me. I hope you have fun writing your poem.